This baby may look ordinary, but he's so powerful that even a god can't control him. After inheriting the power of a mysterious mask, he becomes the target of a dangerous enemy. Here's what happened. Earlier, in a museum, a guide tells visitors the legend of a powerful mask said to grant supernatural abilities to anyone who wears it. While the guests listen casually, a mysterious intruder secretly watches from the shadows. Without warning, he reveals strange powers and claims to be the figure from the story, sending people into panic. He heads straight for the display case, expecting to recover the mask, only to discover it is a fake. Furious, he unleashes destruction throughout the museum, easily overpowering security and leaving behind devastation that makes it clear something far more dangerous has begun. Elsewhere, the real mask quietly drifts down a river until a dog discovers it and carries it home, completely unaware of its importance. Not long after, Tim and Tanya return home from visiting friends who recently had a baby. The visit sparks a serious discussion about starting a family, with Tanya expressing interest in having a child while Tim remains uncertain about taking on such responsibility. Their conversation is interrupted when their dog arrives carrying a strange mask. Tim dismisses it as worthless, unaware it will soon change his life. Meanwhile, the mysterious figure continues desperately searching for the mask, knowing it must be recovered before it causes even more damage. At work, Tim struggles to impress his demanding boss despite presenting new ideas, leaving him frustrated and stuck without recognition. Later that evening, he tries to make things right with Tanya by giving her a small gift. However, he soon realizes he must attend a company party without a costume. Tanya jokingly suggests he wear the strange mask instead. With no better option, Tim takes the mask to the party. The moment he puts it on, it attaches itself to his face and transforms him into a completely different being with exaggerated cartoon-like powers. At the party, he turns the entire event into a chaotic performance, finally earning the attention of everyone around him, especially his boss, who is deeply impressed. Afterward, Tim unknowingly returns home and spends the night with Tanya. The next morning, he is shocked to discover he remembers absolutely nothing about the previous night. Forced to rely on other people's accounts, he becomes even more confused. His boss then asks him to recreate the performance as a major new project, presenting an opportunity Tim barely understands. Excited, Tim rushes home with the news, only for Tanya to reveal something even bigger. She believes she may be pregnant. A visit to the doctor soon confirms it. However, a strange incident suggests the mask's influence may not be limited to Tim alone. Time passes, and their baby, Alvi, is eventually born. As the family adjusts to their new life, the mask remains missing and its effects continue in ways nobody notices. Back at home, Tim desperately searches for the mask, hoping it can help him recreate his success. Unknown to him, their dog, Otis, secretly hid it after feeling replaced by the new baby. Unable to find it, Tim leaves for work while Tanya stays home with Alvi. During a peaceful moment, Tanya entertains the baby with a balloon. Suddenly, Alvi briefly mirrors her actions in an impossible way before instantly returning to normal as though nothing happened. Tanya notices nothing unusual and continues playing. Nearby, however, Otis silently observes, and for the first time his curiosity begins turning into jealousy as he realizes his place in the family has changed. Meanwhile, Loki adopts a new strategy. Transforming into a small beast, he sneaks into a hospital without attracting attention while searching for the child connected to the mask's power. After intimidating a receptionist, he copies her appearance perfectly and gains access to hospital records, allowing him to identify every baby born on the same day. Armed with a list of possible targets, he begins visiting homes one by one, hiding his true intentions behind harmless disguises while examining each child. At the same time, Tim and Tanya are overwhelmed by the realities of parenthood. Sleepless nights become routine because Alvi refuses to settle down. One evening, Tim's exhaustion becomes so severe that he nearly makes a dangerous mistake. Without revealing anything unusual, Alvi instinctively uses his hidden abilities to snap Tim back to awareness, quietly preventing disaster. The following morning brings even more pressure when Tanya announces she must travel for work for an entire week, leaving Tim alone with the baby. To make matters worse, he must also complete a major animation project that could determine his future at the company. Now forced to balance fatherhood and work at the same time, Tim struggles to keep everything under control. Fortunately, his boss agrees to let him work from home. But even with that flexibility, the constant crying, lack of sleep, and endless interruptions make it nearly impossible to focus. As the days pass with little progress, his boss keeps increasing the pressure, and the situation grows more stressful by the hour. When Tanya calls to check on them, a heartwarming moment quickly turns unsettling as Alvi says his first word, calling for his mother.
Mama.
Moments later, however, he repeats it in a voice far too mature for a baby.
Mother.
At the same time, Loki continues moving from house to house under various disguises, secretly testing children in search of the one connected to the mask's power. Back at Tim's house, he breaks one of Tanya's rules and places Alvi in front of the television. The distraction finally keeps the baby quiet, allowing Tim to focus on work for a while. Before returning to his project, he asks Otis to watch over Alvi. The dog ignores him completely and heads outside instead, drawn to the secret he buried earlier. Inside the doghouse, Otis digs up the hidden mask. The moment he finds it, everything begins to change. Later that night, Tim falls asleep unaware that he has already lost control of the situation. Otis puts on the mask and transforms, gaining the same unpredictable cartoon-like abilities that Loki has been chasing all along. Inside, Alvi watches cartoons peacefully, unaware of the danger growing nearby. The next morning, Tim remains stuck on his project. Suddenly, Alvi starts mimicking what he watched on television. Right before Tim's eyes, the baby performs exaggerated cartoon-like actions that defy all logic. Panicked, Tim tries to get help, but nobody believes him. Whenever someone else is present, Alvi immediately returns to acting like a normal baby. Unable to prove anything, Tim becomes increasingly isolated and overwhelmed. Later, Tim rushes home to calm Alvi, but chaos erupts when the baby grabs his leg and swings him around the living room like a toy. Otis then appears carrying what seems to be a toy, but it is actually a stick of dynamite with a burning fuse. Alvi instantly recognizes the danger, blows out the fuse, mimics an explosion sound himself, and casually runs off. Thinking he has succeeded, Otis celebrates too soon. Moments later, a giant bone lands in front of him. He happily starts chewing it without realizing it is another explosive. The blast sends him flying, but thanks to the mask's power, he survives. Refusing to quit, Otis creates a more elaborate plan involving ropes and machinery to finally get rid of Alvi. That night, he sneaks into the house. When Tim sees the transformed dog carrying strange equipment, the shock causes him to faint instantly. Ignoring him, Otis climbs upstairs and lowers himself into Alvi's crib using a rope from the ceiling. He attaches a clamp to what he believes is the baby's diaper and prepares to activate the trap. Unnoticed, Alvi switches the clamp onto Otis's collar. The moment Otis activates the machine, he is launched into the air instead. His plan backfires spectacularly. Tim wakes up and tries to help, but Otis is dragged violently throughout the house, smashing into furniture, crashing into a piano, getting pulled through a vent, spinning through a ceiling fan, flying outside, then being dragged back inside again. The chaos continues until he ends up trapped inside a washing machine that repeatedly tosses him around. Completely exhausted, Otis finally gives up. Alvi casually blows him out of the window like a balloon, sending him into the yard where the mask falls off. Inside, the house is nearly destroyed, yet Tim still tries to care for his son as if everything is normal. Tim is interrupted by a delivery man who is actually Loki in disguise. Loki hands him a package, causing Tim to step away briefly. As Tim opens it, Loki studies Alvi, but since the baby appears completely normal, he decides to leave. The package suddenly knocks Tim unconscious, and when he wakes up, panic sets in. Certain that something is seriously wrong, Tim grabs Alvi and rushes to the hospital. During the drive, the baby displays more unnatural behavior, confirming Tim's fears. Watching from afar, Loki finally realizes that Alvi is the child he has been searching for all along. At the hospital, Tim rushes inside while Loki follows, removing anyone who gets in his way. He confronts Tim and demands the mask, refusing to believe Tim knows nothing about its location. Tim escapes with Alvi, but Loki quickly intercepts them and launches a powerful attack. Instinctively, Alvi protects both himself and his father. When Loki attempts to send a fire blast on them, Tim is suddenly possessed by Loki's father, Odin, who confronts him for defying his orders to find the mask and strips him of his immortal powers. Seizing the opportunity, the baby fights back and overwhelms Loki, forcing him to retreat. For a moment, the crisis seems over, but reality quickly catches up with Tim. He returns to the studio with nothing prepared for his presentation and ultimately loses his job. Later, he calls Tanya and admits that despite everything that happened, spending time with Alvi mattered more to him than work. That night, peace finally returns. Tim cares for Alvi, and both eventually fall asleep. However, the calm does not last. Loki secretly returns, enters the house, and reaches the baby's room. There, he performs a ritual and summons Odin, revealing that he has finally located the child connected to the mask. Odin restores Loki's powers, but only for a limited time, and orders him to resolve the situation. With his strength returned, Loki prepares to finish what he started. A noise outside catches his attention, and he immediately uses fear to control the situation. Tim wakes up and rushes to Alvi's crib, only to find something terrifying. Instead of his son, he sees Loki shifting between forms right in front of him. Loki finally reveals his true identity and gives Tim a single ultimatum: bring the mask to a nearby alley within 1 hour, or he will never see Alvi again. Without waiting for an answer, Loki grabs the baby and escapes through the roof, leaving Tim stunned and helpless. Seconds later, Tanya arrives home and finds the house in ruins. Before she can react, Tim attacks her, mistakenly believing she is Loki in disguise. After realizing his mistake, he quickly apologizes and explains everything, but Tanya refuses to believe such an unbelievable story. Her doubts disappear when their neighbor suddenly appears with a distorted appearance, proving something supernatural is happening. Knowing they need the mask to save Alvi, Tim and Tanya decide to find Otis. Meanwhile, Otis has already reclaimed the mask and is busy enjoying its powers, completely unaware of the urgency. Tim eventually convinces him to help, and Otis reluctantly hands over the mask. At the alley, Loki waits with Alvi, treating the baby's powers like a game. When Tim and Tanya arrive, they offer the mask in exchange for their son. Loki pretends to accept, but at the last moment he breaks the deal and keeps the baby. Otis immediately attacks, knocking the mask into the air. Tim catches it, puts it on, and transforms once again. With his powers restored, Tim launches after Loki. Using the mask's abilities, he turns his car into a powerful machine and, together with Tanya and Otis, begins a high-speed chase. Loki fights back by turning the road into massive moving waves, but Tim manages to stay on course. Eventually, Loki retreats into a boxing arena and challenges Tim to a final showdown. The battle begins with Loki dominating through experience, repeatedly knocking Tim down. Refusing to quit, Tim manages to trap him briefly and throw him away. Tanya rushes to free Alvi, believing the fight is over, but Loki quickly returns and blocks their escape. Every attack Tim launches is effortlessly turned harmless by Loki, proving the fight could continue forever. Realizing this, Loki proposes letting Alvi choose who he belongs with. He tries to win the child over with tricks, illusions, and displays of power. Instead, Tim removes the mask and speaks honestly to his son. He explains that becoming a father changed him and made him a better person, something no magical power could ever do. Moved by his words, Alvi finally says "Daddy" and chooses his family. Furious, Loki prepares one final attack, but Odin suddenly appears and stops him, declaring that he has gone too far. As Odin prepares to punish Loki, Tim asks for mercy, arguing that a father should forgive his son. Touched by the request, Odin spares Loki, takes him away, and removes the mask forever. With the danger finally over, life returns to normal. Inspired by everything he experienced, Tim creates a new project that finally succeeds, opening a better chapter in his life. Later, while enjoying a peaceful moment with his family, Tanya reveals they are expecting another child, ending the story on a joyful note while hinting that more chaos may still be ahead. What do you think of this story? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more stories.